Hey, Legacy Leaders, great to be with you again today. Today I want to talk about making changes and recognizing why it is that you do what you do, or maybe what holds you back from doing the things that you should do. The first thing that I want you to recognize is that the results you're getting today are based on the things that you've done up to this point. If you want different results, if you want things to be different, if you want to grow, if you want to change, if you want to achieve new things, then you have to be willing to do something different. And just by the fact that you are in this course means that you've already made a commitment to doing something different than maybe you've done before. You probably haven't been through a lot of fundraising training or trainings on how to run your nonprofit, right? There's not a lot of us that get into nonprofit world because that's what we went to school for, or that's what we were trained for our whole lives. And so I want to help you walk through some of the things that might hold you back. But the first key is an awareness. Being aware of why it is that you do what you do. Are you doing it out of intentionality, or are you doing it out of a fight-flight response? You're just reacting, or maybe this is what you were always taught to do, or the way you've always seen everybody else do it. Or are you being strategic, really making strategic decisions out of understanding best practice principles, understanding who you are, the way that you think, the way that you need to relate to people? A lot of times we choose not to do things because of past pains or traumas or things that we've tried doing before, but they haven't worked out for some reason. And so we just decide that, hey, I'm not going to do that anymore. It was too hard. It was too difficult. Somebody was mean to me when I was a kid, right? Or somebody said something negative about the thing that I did. And so I decide that I'm no longer going to continue doing that anymore. And it's really important to start having recognition of even the resistance that we feel around certain things. I'm going to teach you some ways to process through the resistances that you might face when we get into actually doing certain activities. It's good to be aware. When I tell you to go out and write 2 emails asking people for money, that might cause a little bit of panic. That might cause a little bit of anxiety. I want you to start being aware of that. Rather than just plowing through and doing something, I want you to start having an awareness about why you feel those things, or even just an awareness that you are feeling those things. When we continue to push forward and we do something and we just ignore those feelings, that actually is one of the things that can lead to burnout. It's one of the things that can lead to overwhelm. Anytime we're doing something that is out of integrity with ourselves, out of integrity with our own belief system, out of integrity with something that our body or our mind is trying to do to protect us, we're fighting against ourselves, and that's going to cause burnout, that's going to cause stress, that's going to cause your body to go into fight or flight and produce more cortisol, and then that is just unhealthy chronically, right? But if we can learn to be aware, first and foremost, of the times when we're facing resistance, be aware of the times when we are struggling with different things, when we feel overwhelmed or anxious or we feel excited, right? Anytime we can learn to recognize our emotional state, we can learn to recognize maybe things that are triggering us or causing us to maybe go down a certain path and feel a little bit off. That's when we can actually process it through. We can work on those things. We can start to say, okay, let me now work through whatever that is. Let me get to the bottom of whatever those things are so that I can have a better understanding. I want to be able to be more aware and say, what are those things? So the first thing that maybe comes up for you is that nobody's ever trained me how to do this, and maybe it's an imposter syndrome, and it's an uncomfortable feeling of like, am I doing the right thing? I don't want to mess something up. I don't want to put myself out there and feel like I did something wrong or I presented something in the wrong way. Maybe it's a relational thing where I don't want to lose a relationship by coming across too forward or too confrontational or being too direct to ask somebody. And so I just feel like I'd rather not ask at all. I'll just hold back because I don't want to lose the relationship. And again, like I've mentioned in some of my previous workshops, that long-lasting, effective fundraising is all about relationships. It's all about knowing how to ask in a relational way, about making sure that we're couching all of our things in relationship, in partnership. So we're not begging for money, but we are inviting people to partner with us. And we're going to talk about how to do all of this in a relational way. Maybe you are afraid that doing certain things isn't going to get you a result. It's new to you. You haven't experienced it. And so stepping out and doing something might feel uncomfortable. It might feel different. It might feel a little weird. It might feel like, is this even going to get me a result, or is this just a total waste of time? Right? So there's all these different things. Maybe you think like there's got to be a faster way, an easier way. Like, why go through this whole process? I don't really like processes, right? Like, there's all these different things that might hold us back. And we're like, can't this just be easy? Like, why does this have to be so hard, right? And so it's important to recognize as those things come up. And as the emotional things come, and again, it's remembering all of this is brand new. You've probably done fundraising up to this point in your organization. If you've been around for any amount of time running a nonprofit, you have done fundraising. You've made presentations, you've made asks, you've made requests, but maybe not in the way that I'm teaching you. Maybe you've done some of it, but it's always felt uncomfortable to you, and you've just plowed through it. And it's part of what's leading you to this place of overwhelm, even right now. So I want to encourage you to recognize that. We're going to take time, maybe in our group coaching calls or on some of these different calls, to walk through some of those limiting beliefs, some of those things that hold you back. I know another one that I've heard from people is that fundraising is not biblical. And people say like, oh, yeah, I can't ask people for money. Asking for people for money is not a biblical concept. Well, if that's you, I want to challenge you with a couple of things. And again, if we're out of integrity when we're doing something, and then it's just going to lead to burnout. It's going to lead to overwhelm. And so I want to deal with some of these things early on so that I can help you have a different understanding, a different perspective, so that as we move forward in the rest of this course, you can do it with a sense of integrity. You can do it with a sense of belief that you're doing the right thing. I don't want to ever ask you to do something that A, I haven't done myself, but B, that it's out of your own integrity, or you're not feeling like it's the right thing or it's the appropriate thing. So one place in scripture that talks about fundraising and really gives precedence is the building of the tabernacle in the Old Testament. Really fascinating story where God is actually talking directly to Moses, and he tells Moses how he wants him to go and do a fundraising campaign. It's essentially a capital campaign to raise in-kind support for the tabernacle. He says anybody that has it on their heart to give, present to the people, tell them that I no longer want to just be out here in this cloud of fire or pillar of cloud or whatever else, that I want to live and I want to reside with you. Just like all of you are living in tents, let me live in a tent with you. And God says, to Moses that they're to build a tabernacle, a tent for God's presence to reside with the people as they're in the desert. And God tells Moses very specific dimensions, everything else for the building of the tabernacle. But he says, Moses, anybody who has it on their heart to give, I want you to present to them, and I want you to invite them to give. And here's the list of all the things that you're going to need in building the tabernacle. This much gold, this much silver, this type of animal skins, whatever else. And the thing that's interesting to me in this whole thing is it's not a command. It's not like the Ten Commandments or some other law that God's giving to Moses. It is, God actually says, anybody who has it on their heart to give, let them give these things. And so it's an invitation to partner with this fundraising campaign, with this capital campaign, to partner in building the tabernacle for God. And it's the exact same thing that we're going to do, is we invite people into our organizations. We just say, anybody who has it on their heart to give, this is the vision, this is what we're going towards, this is what we're working towards. And if you have it on your heart to give, I invite you to partner. Right? And so it's focused on that vision. It's focused on what we want to accomplish. It's focused on inviting people in. The second place in the Old Testament that we see this happen is with the building of Solomon's temple. David has this vision that, they've now moved into Israel and the Israelites have taken over their own area, but God still has this tabernacle. And David says, I want to build you a palace. Like, I'm living in a palace, I want to build you a temple. There's no reason that God, you still have this tent that you're living in. And God tells David, you have too much blood on your hands. It's not going to be you. It's going to be your son Solomon that's going to build this temple. But if you want to collect all the provisions for Solomon to be able to build it, I'm happy to let you do that piece. And so David takes a whole bunch out of the treasury and puts that towards it. But then again, he invites all the people of Israel. It says anybody who has it on their heart to give, you can give towards the building of the temple. And here's the things that we need, right? Same thing. So there's precedent directly from God. There's precedent in the building of the temple. We see other people like Nehemiah raising support for the building of the wall, rebuilding around Jerusalem. In Luke chapter 8, verse 3, we actually see that Jesus himself receives personal support for the personal needs of him and his followers as they do ministry. That there is a place in Luke chapter 8, verse 3, where it actually says that he's receiving support for his personal needs. And so if you're feeling like, hey, getting support, receiving support, like that's not right, you should be working and making extra money and doing your ministry and doing your work, right? Like there's not precedent for that. Like people even supported Jesus and he received that. And then 2 Corinthians chapter 8 and 9 is a fundraising letter that the Apostle Paul is writing to the Corinthian church, and he's giving some instruction and everything around the rest of the book. But I really encourage you, and this is actually going to be your homework for today, is to go read 2 Corinthians chapter 8 and chapter 9, and I want you to read it from the perspective of it being a fundraising letter. I want you to really read through and say, okay, the Apostle Paul is writing a fundraising letter to the Corinthians. Let me read it from that perspective. And I want you to pay attention to the kind of language that Paul uses. I want you to pay attention to how direct or indirect he is. I want you to pay attention to how he's asking them to support. And I want you to recognize the biblical precedent for fundraising around all of these different things. Because if you still feel like after those stories and looking at 2 Corinthians that fundraising is not biblical, I don't know how else to convince you. So I would encourage you to go and check out 2 Corinthians 8 and 9. That's your homework for today. I really want you to read through that. Whether you're a follower of God or not, you believe in the Bible or not, it's still, I believe, a really impactful letter and helpful thing to understand as you're fundraising for your organization. Other limiting beliefs that you might have. You might have a belief about not being worthy. Maybe you don't believe enough in your organization or in your mission. You really got to get clear on what is your vision. Can you really, what do you want to accomplish? What do you feel passionate about? And knowing that it's okay to invite other people to partner with that, to bring them in, to say, come and be part of this vision with me, partner in helping to accomplish this thing, right? And during our Foundations of Fundraising and Volunteer Recruitment workshops, we usually get into an exercise that I call redefining. And so if you haven't been through that workshop already, I'd encourage you to go and check out the workshop, be part of that, and understand, what is your perspective around asking people for money? Maybe you need to redefine that a little bit. Maybe, and redefining really is just mapping out all the non-ideals. So I can say, asking for money, that's what I'm going to redefine. And I'm going to map out, here's all the non-ideal thoughts, feelings, and emotions around asking people for money. They might reject me. They might not like me. How am I going to spend that kind of money? Do I really know how to manage that kind of money? Do I have the systems for them to be able to donate? I can list out all these things. I might feel uneasy. I might feel anxious. And so you list out all the non-ideal thoughts. They might reject me. They might not like me. List out all the non-ideal feelings. I feel nervous. I feel anxious. I feel stressed. List out anything non-ideal. And then on the other side, you're going to list out all the ideals. How do I want to feel ideally about asking people for money? How do I want to ideally think about asking people for money? How do I want that to go? I want to be bold. I want to be confident. I want to know that people are excited to give to the work that I'm doing. I want to know that we're accomplishing something great. I want to know that people are excited to partner with me in my organization, to want to accomplish something greater. That people, when I go and I ask them, they say like, this is exactly what I needed. This is exactly what I wanted. I've been looking for somebody doing this thing that I can give my money to. I've just been sitting on money waiting for an opportunity to be able to make a difference in the world, right? So you map out ideally how do you want it to go, and you'll see that there's a shift in your perspective and your mentality just by doing that piece, by mapping out your non-ideals and then mapping out your ideals. It's called redefining. And so we might do some redefining as we go along with this. As we go through this whole course, I invite you to just reflect back to that image of a bridge that I've shared with some of you before. If you have gone through any of my other workshops or you've heard me talk about this image of a bridge, that there's two pillars that are supporting this bridge. The first pillar is the systems, the tools, all of the processes, the best practices that you need to have a successful organization, to leave a lasting legacy, to be able to really run things efficiently and effectively. The other pillar on this bridge represents who you are, how you do it, your mindset, your perspective, working through your past pains and your traumas, and being able to be a healthy leader, a healthy individual. Are you taking care of yourself? Are you focusing on doing things in a way that feels authentic and genuine to you? Are you recognizing the resistances? If we don't have both of those pillars, if you remove either one of them, the whole bridge crumbles. And so as we go through this course, we're going to focus on both sides. We're going to focus a lot on the systems, the processes, the tools. I'm going to teach you best practices around how to ask for money. I'm going to teach you the large donor process that I use for raising millions of dollars a year in organizations that I've worked for. I'm going to help you understand how do you market, how do you recruit volunteers. I'm going to teach you how do you create a monthly giving program. We're going to get into a lot of the systems, the tools, the processes, crafting your vision and your mission and your org chart and core values, all the foundational aspects of planning that need to happen before you even make a presentation. But then on the other side, we're also going to focus on how do you overcome your limiting beliefs? How do you recognize the triggers and the overwhelm and the things that might feel ingenuine or inauthentic? And we're going to learn how to process through those things. I'm going to talk to you about self-care. We're going to talk about what are you doing to make sure that you're taking care of yourself, making sure that you're taking time off. We're going to talk through how to overcome maybe some past traumas or past patterns that are holding you back and not only keeping you stuck, but keeping your organization stuck. And so we're going to focus on both sides of both of those pillars as we go throughout this academy. I'm really, really excited to have you guys here. I'm excited to have you in this Academy for Nonprofit Leaders. Again, your homework for today is to go read 2 Corinthians chapters 8 and 9. And I would love to have you just drop in the comments. If you're watching this on Facebook, drop in the comments what you learned from that, what stood out to you. If you're watching this on another membership platform, then I would encourage you go to the Facebook group and you can either do a little video or just share in the Legacy Leader Academy for Nonprofits, share in the Facebook group what you got out of reading 2 Corinthians 8 and 9 in regards to fundraising and the biblical side of fundraising.